What's up, nerd and nerdettes? It's time for a superpower shorty. This superpower can be considered a splinter off the branch of light manipulation and mirror manipulation. So sit down and get set for reflection manipulation. With the ability to misdirect, redirect, refract, and reflect in order to attack and beat back. Okay, that's enough of this, really. Jeez, Shay. Users of Antanaklokinesis, yes, that's a real term, I think it's Greek or something like that, can create, shape, and manipulate reflections by either controlling and or using mirrors or just a random reflective surface that can be used to reflect and redirect attacks. Users can turn the reflections into real objects or beings, turn reflectors and reflections into prisons, storage places, and other pocket dimensions for their own use, or manipulate space and time inside the various reflections that they command, and so on and so on. This ability is very similar to mirror manipulation, which I've covered before. So if you want to take a look at the additional symbolic and cultural meanings, it can be found there. But as far as this ability goes, it definitely has its own unique themes and associations, which we will get to. But in order to get to it, the rays of info in this video need to be angled correctly so you can see them the right way. Yeah, I know, they gotta bounce up and off of every eye they come in contact with in order to properly work. I think you guys know how. That's right, by hitting that like and subscribe button. Lens crafters won't return my calls anymore, so I'm depending on you guys to help me out of this mess. So if you want to pass on that good fortune to others, aka pass on the info, so they don't make the same mistake I did, then hit that share button. Makes plenty of sense to me. The origins of reflections, or a reflection, are very easy to discover. So, and just to skip to the important part, the first form of a reflection, or the originator, if you will, of a reflecting surface in the case of humans, would be water. You know, a still pool of water in most cases. And later on from there, various forms of glass or crystal-based materials. But from there are myths and legends that cover this concept, starting with the infamous story of Narcissus, who, upon seeing his reflection, was so vain and enraptured in how he looked that he ignored all who tried to woo him and ended up killing himself out of grief he couldn't get with himself, I guess. Or Perseus, who used the polished shield in order to cast the reflection of a Gorgon sister, in most cases this was Medusa, back in their direction, turning them into stone. Or in a more scientific and worldly view, I'm sure you guys know that visible light rays and photons bounce off our retinas and back at whatever we're looking at, which allows us to see color, shape, and detail. And in a meta sense of what the word means, to reflect something, even something as simple as an image, is in its simplest forms just bouncing it back to where it came. Or, ironically, when someone says reflect something, it can mean you decide to take on the aspects or properties of what something else has, such as an image, likeness, or an outline. So this power just isn't limited to simple sight and or simple light-based physics. But since I already said what I said, it's pretty obvious that this power shares elemental themes with light, water, and earth, and mainly ties in with perception, aka the sense of sight. But I would go even deeper than the sense of sight, literally, as when referring to a sensory output, we have to remember that all they do is transfer information to the brain. And psychological themes are where this ability really likes to stretch its legs, more so than actual mirror manipulation. And popular culture shows us this in innumerable ways. One of the most popular is through the use of mirrors, where a character during a moment of reflection and deep contemplation looks in the mirror and instead of seeing their reflection, they see another. This can range from the mirror monster projection trope, if the character is dealing with hidden demons or an actual monster inside them, or a visual change to the reflected appearance or personality change in the reflected appearance, which normally ties into characters who suffer from psychological disorders. Or even worse, once a character stares into the reflection in the mirror, it comes to life and attacks them, which could imply something supernatural behind that reflection-based ability. So when tying into the same themes of mirror and light, a reflection is something that displays or amplifies what already exists. It wouldn't be that hard of a stretch to say that symbolically, the concepts of reflections are associated with truth and clarity, just as the combination of light's symbolic attachment to illumination, awareness, and wisdom help illustrate the relation between these two abilities on that front, along with glass's symbolic and cultural meanings that have to do with enhancement and protection. And last but not least, mirror's similar association with the concept of truth. The combination of all that help reveal or at least bring a little clarity to most if not all situations. Pun definitely intended. If you want more information on the symbolic and cultural meanings of light, glass, or mirror manipulation, check out my video on those. The link is in the description. A possessor of this ability is normally shown using an ability like this to become an absolute menace on the battlefield, as a user with these powers can run the gauntlet from simple illusions to straight up fundamental force defiance or interdimensional travel and manipulation. Very similar in a manner to mirror manipulation. They can use the reflection as a portal and pull a version of the reflected from an alternate world, or just straight up clone them out of light or whatever material that they're reflected on. They can reflect attacks and or status effect, and God forbid if they can mimic the powers of those they reflected. And don't think that ability is just limited to mirrors or glass, or even metal, because when referring to the light-based aspects of this power, anything can be reflective under the right conditions and serve as a gateway to use these abilities, such as a stray sun glare or a bead of sweat, or even your eyes shining in the wrong little bit of light. Which makes the absolute worst part of this ability, well, in regards to someone who's actually going up against this ability, is that a user of this power has the potential to move or activate their powers at the speed of light or near the speed of light, as visual reflections are based on photons, and photons are pretty fast. So basically, you use this anywhere on Earth, that's near instantaneous speed. You're not teleporting, but you're moving so fast you might as well be teleporting, especially when it concerns anything else on Earth. A user who possesses this power has a personality that can range from either being a lighthearted and silly fool who can mind break you, or they can be a completely unhinged and creative psycho who can still break your mind. But despite all that I mentioned earlier, it's standard and or normal to see a possessor of this power flying solo, as there really isn't much you can't do with this ability, even in its more restricted and elemental forms. Now, with the power to manipulate reflections comes the natural ability to launch attacks that have reflective properties to them, which allows the attack to bounce off of various surfaces in numerous ways that can benefit the user, with reflective attacks. And if the user so chooses, they can play the Uno reverse card and redirect any incoming attack away from themselves before it hits them with deflection. That ability can branch out into many others, but the most important that needs to be mentioned is the ability to redirect any incoming supernatural ability sent their way via power reflection. Now, this can be done in one or two ways: by sending any attack directed against the user back to the attacker or target of choice via power echo, which is your standard redirection or reflection ability, or if your idea of the word reflect is different than how others view it, it's possible to create or copy the exact effects of whatever attack in order to cancel it out with power replication. But you're not just limited to the abilities of your targets, because with Catoptric Replication, you're able to create reflective clones of whatever you target with obvious visual differences. And in order to interact with those projections, reflection interaction is pretty much necessary if you plan on having them listen to you in any way, shape, or form. And if you don't feel like moving or bothering to actually command them, then allow them or any other reflection to do all the work by giving it a form of sentience with independent reflection. And with that comes the ability to use that reflective sentience to divine information completely out of your grasp and or control, which ties into the metaphorical and esoteric themes of this power via catoptromancy. But if creating artificial intelligence is out of the realm of possibilities for you, I completely understand. It's a lot of work. Then enhance your physical form, allowing you to deflect and redirect any incoming attacks that actually make contact with you with reflective exoskeleton. And since your physical form has reflective properties in the meta sense of the word, like stated numerous times throughout this video, you should be able to copy the capabilities of others, taking on their aspect to empower yourself via Mimicry Form. This overpowered application opens the door for numerous others, such as the ability to mimic a target's mannerisms, both obvious and subtle, which can give you the capability to imitate them perfectly via adaptive muscle memory. Or you can literally take on their form in both mind and body, possibly spirit too, via Doppelgänger Morphing. Okay, well, what if you don't want to mess with your own body because you finally got your hair the way you like it? Don't worry, I have an answer for that too. Just take whatever you're reflecting or whomever you are targeting for reflection and bend, twist, and shape them in ways that'll make reflections in funhouse mirrors look normal with distortion manipulation. But if you like to live life on the efficient side of the scale and like to wrap things up rather quickly, then inflict damage to the target's reflection, completely ignoring the need to interact with them via wound transferal, or find a way to destroy the reflective surface or the source of the reflection to insta-kill your unlucky target with reflection destruction. While users a step beyond that can not only deflect and redirect incoming attacks and status effects, which essentially negates them, but in a sinister turn of fate, watch as the hostile powers that were originally intended for them bounce off of them and affect someone else with reflective immutability. That's pretty dang OP. And there you have it, reflection manipulation in a nutshell. An overpowered ability in my opinion, except for the fact that a main weakness of this power is this relation to sight. Well, in its more basic terms. But honestly, this ability really isn't limited to just light and or mirror-based reflections, as it can be found in any other elemental form such as water and earth, and exists as its own concept, the concept of bouncing something back at something else. So with all that being said, I think I have a new favorite ability, because the user's own knowledge, skills, and talents will determine how far they go with a power like this. And I'm pretty dang creative. Mention.